Social media influencers are hot these days. It's the influencer part that grabs me every time I hear it. Today we have on the show a third-year PhD student studying social work at the University of Houston's Graduate College of Social Work. He serves on the executive board of the Sickle Cell Association of Houston and holds positions on several other advisory boards for sickle cell and rare disease stakeholders. But the thing that moves him to the front of the class is that he is a sickle cell social media influencer. That's right, he's doing sickle cell. Please welcome to the Living Your Life, the talented, the debonair, André Marcel Harris. Sir, how are you doing, brother?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me. I
Hey, man, we
appreciate
glad
it.
to have you. Hey, man, we glad to have you, brother. Come tell you right now. I don't know if you see this, Dr. Hebert, but this boy got this coat on.
When you start to rock a tie like that, meaning that you tie it yourself, then
Yes, sir.
you done stepped up into the rarefied air
Yeah, it's
of
That's
grown,
grown man.
grown man.
haberdashery. Yeah.
That's grown man work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
grown man work right there, man. Hey, Andre, man, talk to me about being a social media influencer for sickle cell and like how you champion this cause, man, because and you do this in such a unique way, man, because I look at your Instagram page, man, all I saw was you out there just kicking it, living your life. I mean, I don't even know if you even had a sad day before.
I when people refer to me as a social media influencer, that doesn't even register to me. I feel like I'm just a regular guy living my life, and I do like to share what's going on. But um, I live with sickle cell disease, and I'm very passionate about educating the masses about our disease, what we go through. And social media is, to me, a great tool. It's a free platform for free advertising, and it's a powerful tool if you use it right. And so, with my level of influence, whatever that may be, I try to be a voice for those of us who live with this disease, and those of us who are fighting to make life better for us that live with this disease.
Now you are a I've known you for a while. You are a PhD student. Now a lot of folks that don't understand what that means, I'm gonna explain it to them real quick. You gotta be smart, and you gotta be knowledgeable about how the system works, because there ain't no filling out ABC and filling in the little bubbles. You gotta write a bunch of stuff, and then a bunch of people that you don't know very well have to like it, and then they gotta vote. And if they don't vote, you don't win. So for you to be at that point living with sickle cell, how do you deal with that type of stress every day?
That is a great question. Currently, I'm in my third year, as Kier said, and so this is the time. Traditionally, most people in my shoes and PhD programs are considering their topics for their dissertation and their proposal, and so I'm formulating my committee for my dissertation, and trying to nail down a proposal topic. And so, just like you said, it honestly, living with a chronic disease, a rare disease such as sickle cell, it is a challenge to be in a doctoral level program because the expectation is that you are on call or on go pretty much all the time, every time. And I have to try to respectfully set boundaries to my faculty, to my cohort, and to all of those that I'm in community with on this journey. That there may be times where I can't immediately get back to you, or there may be times I may not be feeling well, or there may be times I'm in a clinical trial, or there may be times I'm at a doctor's appointment. And of course, we have a lot more doctor's appointments than the average person. And so, being able to uh, be an advocate, and even in that space, to really educate people that I'm committed to being a doctoral student. However, just even though I jokingly said earlier, the word accommodations is key, in pursuing those accommodations and actually upholding them, so that I can thrive as a student. So I've had growing pains in this, because a lot of people in education, it took me 12 years start to finish off and on to get my undergraduate degree. I started in 2007 and I graduated finally in 2019 because of sickle cell. And having to step away and maybe getting sick and a myriad of different things. So my experience is not an anomaly. And so really to answer your question, Dr. Hebert, is that I try to be very vocal about what I'm experiencing and set those boundaries and expectations with my faculty as much as possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's hard, man. But you're doing it, so it don't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah, it
You
don't
do it.
matter. You already doing it. I mean, because like you said, you
I'm
being
trying
vocal.
to.
I mean, yeah, I saw on your Instagram, man, where you were really upset about this episode on Velma, right? Like, dude, I was like, oh, he's not playing. Like, man, and I mean, and just so people will know, man, just talk to them about what happened and why you were so upset with this cartoon. You understand this is a cartoon. But I saw the episode too, and it was about her sickle cell and what they said. And so let them know. You just tell them. Just set it up and tell them why you mad.
Yeah. So um, I would just preface and say that I do agree that there is a such thing as creative and comedic license, that people, should be able to express themselves through the arts and, all of these things. I totally agree with that. There's freedom of speech, all of that. However, I think when you have a platform on a TV show that could potentially influence thousands of people, um, that you should be sensitive on the type of topics that you make fun of or use as a butt of a joke. And a lot of people did comment like it wasn't a big deal, blah blah blah. Why are you upset? And I think the problem with me is specifically with sickle cell. There's a difference when you disparage sickle cell in that way, because there's already a foundational ignorance that this society, that this country has about sickle cell disease. And we're fighting, like I said, I'm for those of you tuning in, I'm at the National Sickle Cell Disease Association of America's convention. And so we're here talking about these things. How do we educate the masses about our disease? Because media educates a lot of people about a lot of topics. And if people see something that's really not necessarily characteristic of our experience living with sickle cell on a show on HBO or whatever platform that they're on, that may be the only time they ever hear about sickle cell. And so I'm very careful. That Velma show wasn't the only show, but there's been several movies and other documentaries that have said things that were just um, patently not true about sickle cell, or made us a butt of the joke. And it's very sensitive. There are people dying because there are providers who don't know what sickle cell is. So imagine having providers in emergency rooms who don't know what it is, and how that impacts us. And then also how people, the general population, having erroneous and um,
Mm-hmm.
wrong information fed to them in media, how that impacts them. So
Well, Andre,
that's really what made me.
what did Velma say? Clear. What exactly did she say?
It was
Or it was
Fred. It was Fred who
Fred.
Velma was approaching Fred and basically telling Velma that he doesn't really recognize ugly people, for the lack of better words. And then he said that being ugly is like having like sickle cell, basically, loosely. Um, being
Yeah.
a dork
We
or
know. Well, we
keeping
know that
ugly
that should
is,
have been a lie right there, because you see
yeah.
Andre here. See what he
Okay.
got on.
Um,
Hey, you see what he
yeah.
got on. I don't know what
Yeah,
Fred
like
talking about.
it's a lie, and so those things again, and people would say, well, what harm does that pose? But again, we have to be so careful, because we have other groups. Like, what if we said that about other rare diseases that were not disproportionately affected with people of color? And I think that's what it underlines with, is that these other diseases that you really don't hear being disparaged are not overwhelmingly represented by people of color and marginalized populations. Sickle cell, the face of sickle cell is our people of color. Whether we want to like it or not, that is what it is. The global burden of sickle cell is a colored burden. And so racism and discrimination is at the foundation of every conversation that we have about sickle cell. That it should, we can't divorce that. And so the jokes that we make.
Yeah, let me ask a question here, because what I didn't understand when I saw this whole thing is they have never even had a black person on Scooby Doo or on Velma. So
Well, wait a
where
minute, not
did
on
they even?
Velma, but they did have the Globetrotters.
Yeah,
That's
but
right.
that
It's
was
not
guess.
the
That was
Globetrotters.
guess. That was guess. That was guess. And
The
Scooby is
60s.
brown. Scooby is brown. I get it, but they don't. They
I'm
never.
just playing.
So where? So you know that that was a very specific thing, because those people don't even really know about sickle cell. So
Right.
Right.
that came up in the writer's
Yeah,
room.
the writers' room is where that came from,
Yeah.
That's
and
right. And
And
somebody in the writers' room said that. Yeah. Oh,
it's
then we go with
thinly,
the
to
sickle
me,
cell.
it's thinly veiled racism. And I hate to take it to that point, but it is, because again, like you said, Dr. Hebert, why wasn't other diseases mentioned? What was it about sickle cell that you had? Why did you have to mention sickle cell in that
yeah,
joke?
they could have said cystic fibrosis, but they
Right.
didn't say that.
That was the point.
Well.
If
There
you,
again, I'm gonna just say this for y'all, because I've been in writers' rooms. I wrote, I've been nominated for an Emmy. I got been in the whole industry. Understand that there aren't a lot of us in there.
right.
Right.
I'm in the writers' room. There
But
Yeah.
how
aren't
does
anybody,
that's like
because if I was in the writers' room and I'm sitting there with sickle cell, I'd sit there and I would have laughed. I said, "What makes that funny?"
but what I don't understand is what white person sitting in that writer's room knows enough about sickle cell to
They
say it
don't. They don't.
They don't.
But like he said, we don't want to say it's racist, but it seems that way when that's the disease you chose out of all the diseases you could
in
choose.
the world. Yeah, I don't even
You could have said the flu. You could have get the common cold. You
anything.
could have said a number of things. People with pimples. You could have said a lot of things.
Well, Andre, did they ever did anybody from that show or the producers ever mention anything to you? Did anybody come to you to discuss it?
No one's ever said anything to me from that show. Of course, other sickle cell warriors and those of us living with the disease commented, and they all agreed that they didn't really like the joke. And but I've never heard anything from the platform that it streams on, or any of the writers, any of the people that were responsible for the show. If they've addressed it since then, I'm unaware. But I've never had anybody directly reach out to me,
But
and I
that might be
honestly didn't
something.
expect them to.
You know
Right.
what? That might be something, though, Kier. We have a podcast. That might be something to invite them on
To educate them about
to,
sickle cell.
to talk about it. I think we should bring them on.
We can reach out to them. I don't
Yeah,
have a
let's
problem
do
with
that.
that. That's what we're here for. That's what this platform is for, is to
Yeah, I'm
educate.
interested in that.
Because Andre, and it's not even that, man. You have special interest on a bunch of topics that affect the sickle cell. I mean, you go from a list of, I mean, it's everything. I don't even know where to start at. I mean, you got sickle cell and mental health. You talk about sickle cell and sexual health, sickle cell policy, sickle cell and social work. I mean, you tell me about which one you want to start with, because you do so many. Like, okay, I'll tell you what. Talk to me about sickle cell and policy. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah. So in a nutshell, in my graduate work, in my academic work, I have, well, even in undergrad, I have focused my educational endeavors in the legislative, the policy, the advocacy space. Um, when people think of social work, all of my degrees are in social work, but when people think of social work, um, even myself, before I got into this field, or this profession, um, people automatically think of child protective services. They automatically
That's what
think
I just thought.
of
Yeah.
CPS. They think of someone who has a licensed therapist, and those are respected and needed positions in our profession. However, social work is so broad and so vast and so in depth, that when I was exposed to different avenues, I knew I didn't want to do therapy. I knew I didn't want to do child protection. And so when I was exposed to being trained as a social worker, but also having influence in policy and advocacy, I fell in love. And so even from undergrad, I started doing work at the time I lived in North Carolina. So with my local community-based sickle cell organization, we would travel to Raleigh to the state house. I've even been to Congress several times advocating for sickle cell disease. And then even now in Houston and in the state of Texas that I live at, I go to Austin to the state house. I even in my master's program, for my MSW, I did my field placement with a state representative. His name is Jarvis Johnson, who is a staunch advocate for sickle cell disease, not only in the state of Texas, but honestly, I feel he's one of the most staunch advocates in any state house in this country. He does so much work. And so I begged my program in my master's to work with him. And we were able to write bills and pass bills for sickle cell. So that's kind of where I got my feet wet. But there's a lot of policy that needs to be changed, a lot of healthcare policy that needs to be changed, and it trickles down to those of us that have sickle cell. And so making sure that we are included in the conversation. I can give you one example. Specifically in the state of Texas, we have a compassionate use program for cannabis or medical marijuana, and sickle cell is not on that list. But cancer and other diseases are on that list. Why are we not on that list? It's a policy change. There's a lot of things that only can be changed by policy, and sickle cell patients accessing medical marijuana or cannabis cannot be changed other than by policy change. So that's what really got me interested.
Yeah, because that's so crazy. And look at this dynamic. Like, that's so crazy that everybody else can be on the cannabis list, and it happens time and time and time again that sickle cell patients are just all of a sudden like, oh, you guys, hey, we forgot those guys again. We've already signed the law.
Yeah, it's really, but I'm telling you, and André, you said something, and you say thinly veiled racism. I'm going to throw it out there and say, wide open, eyes open racism. Ain't no
Absolutely.
veil. Ain't no, look. This is you.
The veil is off.
We don't even think about you.
Yeah.
And that is so crazy because and go in any state, especially a state like Texas, a state like Michigan, a state like Florida. You know how many black people they have there. So when you start talking about the 150, probably 200,000 people that have sickle cell as opposed to 100 that we say, 200,000 people, and then 4 million people with trait who have actual symptoms, and you're gonna say they're not on the list. And in Louisiana, what we did with the medical marijuana legislation, because I was involved in that, is we leave it up to the doctor. The doctor can say, if I want you to be on it. And the thing is, but at first, we had those list of things for chronicity and that kind of thing, but sickle cell was on there because there was a black person that's a legislator that's at the table. See, the problem with all this stuff is they invite you to the table now. They just don't give you no food. And I'd rather not be at the table if I can't eat. And that's what they do.
Yeah.
And if I can just mention, and I know this is not a conversation about legislation, but thinking about Louisiana, Louisiana just passed a registry bill, and we also put forth the registry bill for the second time in a row in the state of Texas. But I won't turn this political, but unfortunately, our governor vetoed it. And it wasn't because
why?
It wasn't because it was bad legislation. It was because that there was a ploy to hold bills and representatives and senators hostage to pass property tax and school choice voucher legislation. And the problem is there were some bills that were kind of negotiable. If you fix this, I'll lift the veto, or you could push it through. But ours, the rationale was he had problems with confidentiality, when in fact there are about 6 other healthcare related registries in the state of Texas, and our registry would have operated along the same lines. We have a cancer registry, an immunization registry, and they all
marrow,
and they would have operated on the same lines
the same way.
The one that we presented to. So
there are no veils there. There's no veil.
Open. It's
no
wide
veil.
Yeah. You know what, man, and that's what makes you see. This is out here living your life because you out here on the forefront for change for us. Because you know what, man, I mean, you're a member of the Sickle Cell Association of Houston. And what does that organization do for you? Like, what makes you be a part of them? And who's all over there? Because I bet you I can tell you who's over there. That would be Linda Wade.
Yeah, well, we have Linda Wade is with the Mark Thomas Foundation, and they do work all over the state. But Sickle Cell Association of Houston was founded by Tanya Prince and Quanicia McCruz, mother-daughter duo. Quanicia McCruz actually lives with sickle cell disease. And her mother Tanya, they both started it about 7 or 8 years ago, probably 7 or 8 years ago. And they specifically serve the population in Houston. And again, I lead up the legislative portfolio, so we've had a niche in legislative victories. We were able to
Wait,
get
stop. I just like the way you said that.
Yeah, I ain't never. I'm telling you, I said the same thing, Dr. Hebert. Because I'm telling you the same thing. I was shocked too because I ain't never heard niche in a sentence.
Okay.
That got me. I didn't even know it. I'm sitting up here, didn't even know what the hell he was talking about. What niche?
The legislative portfolio I lead, and then the niche. Look, bro, you are a wordsmith.
Hey, man.
I'm a nerd. That's really what it is.
No,
when I was a child growing up with sickle cell in the hospital, my mom used to bring me crossword puzzles and vocabulary books and geography puzzles. So I'm a geography and crossword and vocabulary nerd. So yes.
Man, but you're great at it, man.
Just to succinctly finish, that's another word. No, I'm just kidding. But to finish, it's really a family-run organization. And like I said, I actually lived in North Carolina. My parents were in the military, so I was in North Carolina before, and I moved to Texas for my PhD program. But I've been there for 3 years, and I've joined on with them, and it's a wonderful organization. Tanya Prince now is in another capacity, but her daughter has Quanicia McCruz is now the executive director. And so they do great work. It's a small organization, but we do great work. And we push a lot of legislative policies through our advocacy. But going back to the Sickle Cell Association of Houston, not only do we have like legislative priorities that we've been pushing through for the last 3, 4, probably 5 years, we were able to help create a sickle cell task force with Jarvis Johnson. We were able to establish license plates in the state of Texas for sickle cell awareness. We were able to designate September for Sickle Cell Awareness Month.
Come on, man.
We were able, like I said, we passed that registry bill bipartisan support through the House and the Senate before it was vetoed.
Vetoed by governor. That's just because that means that you got enough support from everybody, and then one dude.
And if you know anything about the Republicans in the state legislature in Texas, that is not an easy feat.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
That's not. No, it's not.
So to be able to year after year continue.
But Governor Hidewell said we're not doing it.
Yeah.
For no reason. There's no reason.
And so to be able to go year after year to the state house and session after session, because we're biennial to the state house and see these legislative victories that we help push, I think it's just amazing. So we would love to. I'm glad that you asked me because I really want to highlight their work and highlight them, and hopefully we could bring you, Dr. Hebert, and Mr. Spates to come visit us and do an event.
Hey man, dog, I'm from Houston, dog. What you talking about? I'm out South Park. What you talking about? Of course I'm gonna be there.
I know.
Dog, what you talking about? Dog, you talking about come home and help?
Absolutely.
What? Dog, come on now.
Kier, we got to get on that governor. We got to get on that governor.
Because man, you know what, man, it's so crazy, man. You know, one thing about it is, if you from Texas, Texas politics have one thing. It's two sides on it. It's them and it's us. And for them to get that passed, and he vetoed it, says a lot about what they think about us in the state of Texas with sickle cell. I'm telling you, it has not changed, and I'm 45, and it's been that way. And it's always been that way because any advancement for African Americans in the state of Texas is a problem. It's a problem. That is the truth about our politics in the state of Texas. It is a problem. But what keeps me going back down there and fight for is people like you, André, who are out here on the front lines, who understand that, hey, this is not acceptable anymore. And that's what the issue is. When we start getting amongst ourselves, we say, hey, listen, this is where we're finna go. We're gonna go tell them we're not taking this point anymore. And then we're not trying to fight you out here by marching. We want legislation. So we want laws in place to protect us. And that's the part that we're so proud of what you're doing. Because that's the part, André, that I know living your life is like all this. No, living your life too is also getting serious and down to business with the issues that we're faced with. And somebody has to take that responsibility. And I'm so glad you said I fell in love with it. Yeah, because see, when you're in love with something, it's not easily separated from you. When you're in love with something, when it's good and it's bad, I'm still in love with it. And when you're in love with something, you ain't running from it. And so I appreciate that, man, because, you know, and then I also know another thing about you, too. As a proud member of Phi Beta Sigma, you committed to the cause anyway.
Yes, sir.
That's right. That's right. Because of all organizations, y'all the ones that have really made it so that y'all have that really in your policy. You got that outreach.
And
that
I
other
serve
don't have.
as we have a official memorandum of understanding with the Sickle Cell Disease Association of America.
Yeah.
And so I serve as our liaison between organizations. So
Shocker. Really?
So
Really?
as
I
a
would
Sigma, I
never
am
thought.
the one who was appointed graciously by our president and my social action director to be that bridge between our organization, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and then also Sickle Cell Disease Association of America Incorporated. And that's another reason why I'm here. And so I'm very humble to be in these spaces because it's high time. Me being 34 years old, I think that's almost geriatric for sickle cell, yeah, especially when I was born in the 80s. They told my parents I wouldn't live past 13, and then they pushed
Look
it
at
up to
that.
18.
Once
But
again,
I say
Expiration date.
expiration date.
there's an expiration date, but I say that to say I've been privileged enough to be able I still feel like I'm in my youth, but in my youth at 34 years old, to be in rooms with people of influence, to be able to bend their ear to tell them what our community needs and wants and demands. But I feel, because I feel like I've been an advocate my whole life. Even when I was younger, my mom and my dad, they used to take me to sickle cell conferences and meetings when I was younger, and I would have a briefcase full of notes and notepads.
I wish I
This
could have.
I'm
Come
not
on,
new to
man.
this, right? But I say
Yeah,
this,
true to it.
I feel like
Yeah.
now, the last maybe 5 to 7 years, I see an interest from different stakeholder groups that I did not see before, different industry partners, even governmental agencies that I did not see before. So I'm encouraged and I'm enlightened that the fervor is just now. We're not where we're going to be. We're just at the beginning. So I'm excited about it. And it takes people like you all and me to continue to hold people accountable, to hold them, to make sure that they stay focused, to make sure that we address the foundational issues that impact sickle cell patients. And as a social worker, now I'll say this and I'll be quiet, we are taught to recognize the social determinants of health. Sickle cell is the poster child of social determinants of health because overwhelmingly in this country, we are Black and brown. And because overwhelmingly in this country, most of us can trace our ancestors to a ship that brought us over here against our will 400 years ago. There are so many different policies that have disenfranchised us. And so to talk about sickle cell, you have to talk about Jim Crow. To talk about sickle cell, you have to talk about, I see that is, you have to talk about it. You have to talk about racism. You have to talk about the redlining issues. You have to talk about all of this because redlining, and I'm going to be quiet, you can see the redlining maps and then the disproportionate access to healthcare, even in 2023. So you can't say to get over it, and you can't say we can't talk about racism and sickle cell. Of course, anybody can inherit it. You don't have to be black. There are white people and other people who other colors and ethnicities that have sickle cell, but we cannot ignore the fact that because the majority of us, I believe the literature says over 90% of us are black, you can't ignore the fact that if there's 100,000 people in this country with sickle cell, if 90,000 of them are black, that the majority of us that are black have ancestors that were directly impacted by Jim Crow, redlining, eugenics, all of these policies that were government sanctioned that we are still living under the shackles of in 2023, decades and centuries after they've been abolished or repealed. So in this work, I'm energized to see that there is a interest in not only addressing the pain, not only addressing the accessibility issues, but addressing the foundational issues of why there's a disproportionate access for people with sickle cell disease.
André, let me. Can you imagine? Sickle cell disease was the first disease genetically mapped ever. Can you imagine what those black people went through? Because basically what they had to do was shackle them and draw blood and just keep drawing blood and just doing all kind of stuff to find that out. And so for us to sit here and to not put them, be standing on their shoulders and elevate them to say, we're going to avenge the fact that we got that information from you. It's almost like a Henrietta Lacks type situation. It's got to be avenged. And the way we avenge it is getting that registry passed. The way we avenge it is to make sure that we have access to quality health care where we live, where we love, where we work, where we play. That's where it has to come. And if we don't do that, then it's our fault. It's our fault.
Yeah. Well, André, man, you've been a fantastic guest, sir. Before you go, man, just tell everybody where they can find you at, man. Let them know what you got going on.
Everywhere.
I'm on pretty much every platform. I again, that is part of my advocacy. Social media, like I said before, is a way to advocate. So I'm on TikTok, which I feel like a baby boomer using TikTok. I don't know how to use it, but I am on it. I don't know how to use it. That's my elder millennial kicking in. I don't know. But I am on TikTok. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and really all you have to do is in your search box in any social media platform, type in André Marcel Harris, and you should find me. I haven't found anybody else with my name that looks like me.
No. We're gonna know as you by the jacket. I promise they're gonna know. There go André right there. they gonna know right there.
I tell people at this convention, they always say, "Oh, you always have the most unique jackets or suits," and I do that for several reasons. First of all, I love clothes. I like to be different, but also in these spaces when I'm talking to people and making connections, I want you to remember me. And they always say I smell good. Like, I want you to remember how I smelled and remember what I look like. So when I email you asking you to help for something, you would not forget that this is André, because that's the guy that had the really weird looking suit on.
No, it ain't weird, brother. The real. I'm talking about dog. One of the hottest suits I've seen on this show, brother. I'm telling you, man. Don't even worry about that, André, man. Thank you so much for all you doing, brother. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for taking time out while you at the convention, man, to come talk to me and Dr. Hebert, man, and coming on living your life, man. We appreciate you, man. Round of applause for André Marcel Harris, ladies and gentlemen. This brother did that.
André 9,000.
I'm telling you right now.
Which will be the real Dr. Dre, okay? When I graduate.
Got it. Right. My man.